What if I told you that you were born with a gift so profound, so powerful, that it could change the way you experience everything, but almost no one talks about it? A gift that was quietly silenced, hidden, and forgotten, not because it doesn't exist, but because if you remembered it, you'd no longer be easy to control. You wouldn't be anxious. You wouldn't be lost. You wouldn't be stuck in a system that feeds off your disconnection. And that is precisely why they don't want you to know. From the moment you entered this world, this gift was alive within you. It pulsed in your breath, it shimmered in your thoughts, and it whispered in the space between your emotions. As a child, you could feel it. You didn't need to explain why you felt drawn to some things and repelled by others. You simply knew. You imagined, created, dreamed, danced, and spoke to invisible forces, not because you were naive, but because you were still connected to the truth. This truth. That reality is far more fluid than you've been told. That what we call normal is often just a collectively agreed upon illusion. That your consciousness is not just a passenger of the body, but a navigator, a transmitter, and a magnet. And this gift you carry, it's the key to remembering how to use it. But before we talk about what this gift truly is, we need to look at how it was taken from you. Not in one moment, but slowly, subtly, systematically. As you grew, you were taught to replace intuition with instruction. Instead of trusting your inner knowing, you were taught to look for validation outside of yourself. Good grades meant you were smart. Obedience meant you were good. Questioning too much meant you were a problem. You were taught to analyze everything, but never to feel deeply. To memorize facts, but not to explore truths. To seek answers, but never ask dangerous questions. Dangerous not because they're violent, but because they awaken you. Because they remind you that your life is not a random accident and your thoughts are not meaningless noise. Because they lead you back to the realization that the world within you is just as real, if not more real, than the world outside of you. You were born with the gift of inner sight. No, not necessarily clairvoyance or visions, although for some that may come. Inner sight means the ability to perceive meaning beneath appearance, to read energy rather than just words, to know when something resonates as truth, even if the world says it isn't. It is the ability to feel the future before it arrives, to sense the lie inside a polished message, and to recognize the sacred pattern hidden within chaos. This ability is not woo. It's not fantasy. It's your birthright, and all ancient cultures knew it. From the shamans of the Amazon to the mystics of Egypt, from the yogas of India to the philosophers of Greece, this gift was the very foundation of wisdom. The oracle at Delphi didn't teach strategy, she taught listening. The druid didn't memorize dogma, he studied nature's symbols. The seer didn't look with his eyes, he looked with his awareness. Somewhere deep in your memory, you remember this. Even if you've never been taught, it stirs in you when you look at the stars too long. When you hear music that moves something ancient inside you. When you feel a sudden wave of clarity or déjà vu. It's the echo of what you used to know before the world made you forget. But why would they want you to forget? Because a person who remembers their inner power is unpredictable. They don't just follow trends. They don't need permission to change. They don't buy happiness, they create it. They don't seek approval, they radiate authenticity. And nothing is more threatening to a system built on obedience, division, and distraction than someone who has remembered the fullness of who they are. They don't want you to know that your emotions are messages, that your body is a compass, that your thoughts shape your reality, not by magic, but by frequency. Every thought is a vibration. Every word is a spell. Every belief is a lens through which you sculpt the world around you. They don't want you to slow down enough to realize that your anxiety might be a sign you're not living in alignment, that your sadness might be sacred mourning for the life you haven't yet stepped into, that your boredom is not a flaw, but the inner voice screaming, "There is more than this." And so the distractions are constant. Scroll, click, react, compare, worry, work, repeat. A loop so cleverly designed that you forget to breathe deeply, forget to listen, forget to feel, but the gift is still there. Dormant maybe, but not gone. And the first step to reclaiming it is to remember that silence is not empty. It is full of answers. It is the doorway through which your forgotten abilities begin to stir again. When was the last time you sat in stillness, not to be productive, but to simply be present with yourself? No phone, no goal, just awareness, just breathe, just being in that space. Something ancient awakens. A knowing, a presence, a feeling that you are not lost, you are not broken, you are not behind, you are simply being invited to remember. The second step is to notice the patterns. Pay attention to synchronicity, not as coincidence, but as communication. The song that plays at just the right time. The stranger who says the exact words you needed to hear. The repeated image or number or message that keeps appearing until you finally ask, "What is this trying to tell me?" The universe is not silent. It speaks in symbols. It guides through patterns. It nudges you with signs. And the more you tune in, the more you realize that you were never alone. You were never disconnected. You were just surrounded by too much noise to hear the signal. Your gift is the ability to perceive that signal, to live from that awareness, to act, not react, to move not out of fear or pressure, but out of alignment with something deeper. You don't need to become a monk or a mystic to do this. You only need to become honest with yourself, with what you feel, with what you truly want. Because here's the secret: your desires are not random. They are maps, clues. They are the soul's language speaking through longing. Not every desire should be acted on, but every desire should be heard. So, pause for a moment. What is your soul trying to tell you right now? Don't think, feel. Let that be your compass. Let that be your re-entry point. Because once you start listening again, once you stop outsourcing your truth and start coming home to your own frequency, everything begins to shift. Reality bends. Energy moves. The veil thins. And this is just the beginning. There's a moment in everyone's life when they stop and think, there must be more than this. Not more money, more stuff, or more validation, something deeper. A sense that behind the curtain of everyday life, something is waiting, watching, whispering. That feeling is your gift knocking. You were born with a built-in guidance system, not a GPS, but something far more sophisticated. It doesn't speak in words. It speaks in resonance. It tells you when something feels off. It tells you when something lights you up from the inside. But here's the problem. Most people were trained to ignore that system. Or worse, distrust it. You feel drained after being around someone, but you tell yourself you're just tired. You get a flash of inspiration, a knowing, but you second-guess it and do the practical thing instead. You feel pulled to make a change, but the voice of fear says, "What if it doesn't work?" So you shrink, you wait, you play small. This is not your fault. It's the result of generations of disconnection, of living in a culture that rewards performance over presence, noise over truth, intellect over intuition. A culture that idolizes the mind but fears the soul. but your soul doesn't forget. Even after years of ignoring it, it still sends you nudges. In dreams, in sudden bursts of clarity, in strange coincidences, in the pull you feel towards certain people, places, ideas. That's not random. That's your deeper self trying to reach you. And when you finally stop ignoring it, your life starts to make sense in a way logic never could explain. Your gift is perception beyond programming. You were never meant to live only through your five senses. Those are just the surface. You were designed to sense energy, to decode emotions, to read reality on multiple levels at once. That's why you sometimes just know who to trust. That's why you can feel when someone's lying, no matter how convincing they sound. That's why you get a gut feeling, an inner yes or no, long before your mind catches up. That's not magic. That's intelligence, ancient, embodied intelligence. But this society has taught you to prioritize speed over depth, productivity over presence. So you miss the signals. You push past the intuition. You say, it's probably nothing. But what if it's everything? This is the truth they don't want you to remember. The deeper you go within, the clearer the outside world becomes. Not because you're escaping it, but because you're finally seeing it accurately. Not through fear, conditioning, or ego, but through clarity, through soul. And once you learn how to tap into that gift again, everything changes. You stop chasing people who aren't aligned. You stop forcing what doesn't flow. You stop explaining your worth to people who were never meant to see it. Instead, you become magnetic, calm, focused, not perfect, but powerful. Because your power is no longer reactive, it's rooted. You don't fight for energy, you generate it. You don't beg for truth, you become it. This is not some spiritual fairy tale. This is what every mystic, seer, and awakened mind has always known. That the greatest transformation doesn't happen outside you. It happens when you reclaim the parts of you the world taught you to abandon. But how? Step 1. Silence. You must create space to hear what's real. That means cutting the noise. Even just 10 minutes a day of stillness can start to rewire your nervous system. When you slow down, your deeper awareness begins to surface. And that awareness, that's where your gift lives. Step 2. Sensation. Feel your body. Your body stores every experience you've ever had. Trauma, truth, intuition, memory, they all live there. When you reconnect to the body, you begin to access your emotional intelligence, your instinct, your energetic field. Step 3. Symbol. Life speaks in symbols, patterns, archetypes. The more you begin to notice recurring dreams, images, or metaphors, the more you begin to crack the code of your own consciousness. Your dreams are not meaningless. They are maps, messages, mirrors. Step 4. Shadow. To awaken your gift, you must face the parts of yourself you've rejected. The fear, the rage, the shame. These are not blocks, they're portals. Hidden inside every wound is a deeper strength. Your greatest pain often contains your deepest power. And when you stop running from the shadow, you reclaim the energy you've used to keep it buried. Step 5. Sovereignty. You must stop giving away your authority. No guru, system, or structure has more access to truth than your own inner knowing. Yes, guidance is helpful, but ultimately, you are the gatekeeper of your reality, your choices, your perception. And when you stop outsourcing your clarity, your gift starts to roar back to life. But here's the paradox. The more you remember who you are, the more invisible you may become to the people still asleep. They won't understand your clarity, your calm, your refusal to play the same games. And that's okay. Your path isn't about being understood. It's about being true. You were not born to conform. You were born to transform. And every time you remember this truth, you help others remember too, just by your presence. This is how change really happens. Not through force, but through frequency. Not by convincing, but by embodying. When enough people awaken to their gift, the world shifts, because consciousness is contagious. Your light activates others. Your clarity liberates others. Your peace makes others question their chaos. That is why your gift was hidden, not because it's weak, but because it's dangerous to a world built on lies. You can learn to see through illusion, to hear the truth behind the noise, to know what is real, not because someone told you, but because you can feel it in your bones. That is your superpower, and you've had it since the very beginning, so what's stopping you from using it may be fear, maybe doubt, maybe the voice in your head that says, "Who do you think you are?" But let me ask you this: who benefits from you not knowing who you are? Who profits from your disconnection? Because the moment you stop believing you are small, you become free. And there's no system in the world that can control a truly free human being. There is a reason ancient traditions protected knowledge in symbols, riddles, and myths. The truth could not be spoken plainly. It had to be felt, understood through experience. Your gift works the same way. It doesn't operate on linear thought. It works in layers, like light through stained glass. You catch glimpses of what's behind the veil, not through analysis, but through intuition. And that's where society trained you to disconnect, by overvaluing logic and dismissing inner knowing. You were taught to fear the unknown, to avoid mystery, to distrust anything that couldn't be measured. But here's the twist. The most important things in life, love, meaning, purpose, cannot be measured. They are known in the body, in the soul, in the silent places within you that no device can scan. And yet, those silent places hold the key. You've likely had moments where time slowed down, where everything felt connected, where a whisper of insight passed through you, and you knew it wasn't just your imagination. That wasn't a hallucination. That was your gift momentarily piercing through the programming. You are a being of multiple layers. Your physical body is the outermost shell. Beneath that, your emotions. Beneath that, your thoughts. And beneath even those, your energetic field, your true interface with reality. When that field is aligned, life flows. When it's blocked, life feels heavy, distorted, repetitive. This is why so many people feel stuck. Because they're trying to fix outer problems with outer tools, without ever aligning their inner energy. Your gift is not about manifesting cars or fame. It's about recalibrating to your original frequency, the signal you came into this world carrying, the blueprint of your soul. That blueprint contains your purpose, your path, your power. But in order to access it, you must stop chasing answers from the outside. You must reverse the lens, go inward, listen. Observe without judgment. Feel what's been buried. Your nervous system holds memory. Your breath is a bridge. Your stillness is not passive. It is the most radical action you can take in a world addicted to noise. When you go quiet, you break the spell. You re-enter the dimension where your gift lives. And what is this gift, exactly? It's not just intuition. It's perception. The ability to see truth in a lie. To feel love in a moment of fear. To hear wisdom behind the silence. It's your connection to the infinite field of consciousness that runs through all things. You've touched it before in moments of awe, beauty, surrender. In grief, in joy. In the stillness after heartbreak. In the quiet between thoughts. But here's the thing. This gift, if left dormant, begins to decay. not because it dies, but because it goes unheard, ignored, smothered by the static of the world. And when your inner world is filled with static, you start to live by default instead of design. You forget you have a choice, and that's exactly what they want. The world does not want you to realize how powerful you are, not in the superficial sense, but in the sense that your perception creates reality. That when you change your focus, reality shifts. That when you stop consuming fear, the illusion of control dissolves. Your gift threatens everything that keeps people small. It threatens the systems built on fear, obedience, division. It threatens the lie that you must earn your worth. It threatens the illusion that only a select few are special, chosen, or gifted. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Everyone is born gifted, but most forget, most conform, most bury their light to survive. But you don't have to. In fact, you came here to remember, and in remembering, you help others awaken, not by force, not by preaching, but by living from your center, radiating from truth, acting from clarity. Your very presence becomes disruptive to the illusion. People sense something different in you, even if they can't explain it. They're drawn to your calm, your clarity, your quiet confidence. That's your gift in action. Subtle, yet undeniable. Invisible, yet impossible to ignore. But the path of remembering isn't always easy. It will require you to let go of identities, of roles, of stories that no longer fit. You may lose people. You may outgrow environments. You may question everything. But in that shedding, something remarkable happens. Your real self begins to emerge, not the self shaped by conditioning. The self that existed before the world told you who to be. That self is wise, brave, free. And once you remember it, no one can control you again, not through fear, not through guilt, not through lies. This is the revolution, a quiet, invisible uprising that begins within. It does not require permission. It does not need validation. It begins when one person, you, decides to remember, to listen, to trust the voice that whispers, you were made for more. And what happens when you do? Your energy changes. Your choices align. You begin to attract differently. Opportunities, people, insights, they begin to arrive without force. Not because you manifested them from a vision board, but because you became the frequency of what you truly desire. Because here's the secret. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. Your gift is a tuning fork. And when you tune it to truth, the world begins to reflect that truth back to you. But that's only the beginning. The more you live from this state, the more your perception deepens. You begin to see layers in people's words. You sense what's not being said. You hear the subtle call behind someone's pain. You become a mirror, not of the ego, but of the soul. Others may not understand it, but they feel it. And some will be afraid of it. But the ones who are ready, they will be changed by your presence. You become the reminder they didn't know they needed. This is why your gift matters, because it's not just for you. It's for everyone you touch, everyone you inspire, everyone who wakes up because you had the courage to stop sleeping. But the moment you begin to awaken your gift, resistance appears, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're getting closer to truth. The old patterns don't go quietly. The world will test you, not to punish you, but to see if you're ready. Ready to choose presence over panic, stillness over stimulation, truth over comfort. You'll be tempted to forget again, to numb, to perform, to blend in. But now, something inside you won't let you. The voice of your gift will grow louder. It will tug at you in moments of stillness. It will whisper through dreams. It will flicker behind your eyes like a memory you can't quite place. And once you've heard that voice, it becomes harder to ignore. You'll start noticing signs, synchronicities that make no logical sense. Numbers, words, dreams that speak louder than waking life. People appearing at the perfect time. Messages that feel tailor-made for you. These are not coincidences. They are breadcrumbs, winks from the universe, reminders that you're on the right path, even if you can't see the whole map yet. This is when you stop asking for proof and start trusting the pattern. You realize that your gift is not about knowing everything. It's about feeling what's right, about sensing your way forward, about acting not from fear, but from resonance. And the more you follow that inner signal, the more life begins to unfold like a living conversation between your soul and the cosmos. You're no longer a passive participant in the game of life. You become a co-creator. And this is the knowledge that they have tried to suppress for centuries. Because when people wake up to this truth, that they are powerful beyond measure, that their inner state influences the outer world, then systems of control begin to crumble. The tools of manipulation, fear, guilt, distraction lose their grip. You stop reacting to the noise. You stop outsourcing your worth. You stop buying into stories of limitation. And in that moment, you are free. But this freedom requires responsibility. You can no longer pretend to be powerless. You can no longer blame everything outside of you. You begin to understand. Every trigger is a teacher. Every obstacle an initiation. Every loss a recalibration. The universe stops punishing you and starts sculpting you. This is not about positive thinking. This is about radical self-awareness. You start catching your own patterns. You feel when your energy drops, when your words betray your truth, when your actions contradict your values. But instead of judging yourself, you grow. You ask, what part of me still believes I'm not enough? What illusion am I still clinging to? And one by one, those illusions begin to fall away. The illusion that you must earn your worth. The illusion that your value is tied to productivity. The illusion that suffering is noble and joy is selfish. The illusion that you are separate, small, or broken. None of it is true. You were never meant to live in fear. You were never meant to live in someone else's story. You were never meant to fit in, conform, or hide. You were meant to remember. And when you do, your gift begins to operate in full force. You become more sensitive, not less. You begin to feel subtle shifts in energy. You walk into a room and sense the undercurrents. You speak, and people feel something stir in them, something they can't explain. You start knowing things before they happen, not because you're magical, but because you're finally aligned with your design. This is not New Age. This is ancient. The mystics knew. The shamans, the sages, the seers, they all pointed to the same truth, that reality is not as it seems. That thought shapes matter. That belief is a filter. That the world responds not to who you pretend to be, but to who you are in essence. And your essence is wise, wild, and uncontainable. But you were trained to tame it, to edit yourself, to shrink, to apologize for your power. That's why this moment, this awakening, is so important. Because every time you choose authenticity over approval, presence over performance, alignment over achievement, you reclaim your gift, and you model that freedom for others, not through words, but through being. You become the proof, the reminder, the quiet revolution that ripples outward. Your healing becomes a signal. Your presence becomes permission. Your truth becomes contagious. This is how the world changes, not through force, but through frequency. And your frequency, once awakened, cannot be stopped. You begin to call in people who match your resonance. You attract challenges that grow you. You enter a different stream of life, one where things don't just happen, they align. Where you're not chasing, you're receiving. Where life becomes less of a struggle and more of a sacred dialogue. Yes, you will still face fear, doubt, darkness, but you'll move through it differently. You'll no longer fear the shadow, you'll welcome it, because now you know it holds a message, a missing part of you. And when you stop running from your shadows, they become allies. They point to what's ready to be loved, to be healed, to be integrated. And that, too, is part of your gift. You are not just a light. You are a prism. You were born to transmute pain into power, confusion into clarity, silence into song. You are not here by accident. You came here carrying codes, insights, frequencies, medicine that only you can bring. And every time you live from that truth, the world becomes a little more awake. So the next time you feel the urge to hide, remember this: they trained you to forget. But your soul never did. And if you've read this far, if something deep inside you is whispering, yes, then your gift is already awakening. The only question now is, what will you do with it? Once you awaken to your gift, the world never looks the same again. You begin to realize that everything you've ever feared was only a reflection of unclaimed power, that every limitation was a lie spoken so many times, it started to sound like truth. But now, you're not listening to noise. You're listening to signal, to intuition, to soul. And here's the secret: you don't need to become anything. You only need to remember what you already are. The gift you were born with isn't something rare or elite. It's something eternal, accessible, innate. It's your birthright. But society hides it. Culture distracts you from it. They tell you to focus on achievement, comparison, consumption. Why? Because if you remembered your power, you wouldn't need their systems to validate you. You wouldn't be afraid. And a person without fear cannot be controlled. That's the danger of awakened minds. They stop obeying unconscious rules. They stop performing. They stop surviving and start living. You've always felt the tension, haven't you? The pull between the life you were told to live and the life your soul aches for. The subtle discomfort in normal conversations. The sense that something's missing, even when everything looks fine. That's the signal. That's your gift trying to reach you, not to pull you away from the world, but to help you show up in it, fully awake. Most people don't resist change. They resist being fully seen. Because being seen means being vulnerable, honest, alive. But that's the beauty of your gift. It thrives in vulnerability. It needs presence, not perfection. It doesn't want performance. It wants truth. Raw, sacred, human truth. And when you live in alignment with that truth, something incredible begins to happen. You stop chasing outcomes and start aligning with energies. You stop asking, "What do I need to do?" and start asking, "What do I need to become?" You become magnetic, not because you're trying to impress, but because you radiate something rare: congruence. A person who is rooted in who they are, who speaks with clarity, moves with intention, listens with depth, loves without armor, leads without ego. You become the kind of person who doesn't just walk into a room, you shift it, because your energy speaks before you do. Your frequency precedes your presence, and people feel it. They may not understand it, but they remember it. That's the power of living from your gift. And yes, there will be days you forget. You'll fall back into patterns, you'll doubt, You'll want to turn it off. That's okay. Awakening isn't linear, it's a spiral. Each time you fall, you rise a little truer. Each time you break, something more real emerges. You learn to trust the unraveling. Because you know, the gift doesn't disappear. It waits, patiently, gently. Like a candle in a cave, always ready to be reignited. Eventually, you stop asking for a map. You become the compass. You start listening to your body, your dreams, your intuition. You stop outsourcing decisions. You stop betraying your inner yes to please outer noise. And slowly, everything changes. You see through illusions. You no longer react to the matrix of fear, guilt, shame. You stop proving, fixing, chasing. You become still. Clear, powerful, not loud, but undeniable. You embody wisdom without preaching it. You become light, not because you avoid the dark, but because you've walked through it and returned with gold. This is the essence of your gift. To transmute what most people run from into the very key that sets them free, you were born with this ability. To hold paradox, to feel deeply, to navigate unseen realms, to speak to the soul behind someone's eyes, to translate silence into truth, to live as a bridge between what is and what could be, but no one taught you how, because your gift threatens the status quo. It dismantles the illusion. It asks better questions. It chooses freedom over fear. And nothing terrifies systems of control more than a human who remembers they are infinite. So what now? What do you do with this knowing you remember? Every day, you return. Every moment. You speak, act, love, and create from that inner knowing that you were never just a person. You were always a mirror of the cosmos, a thread in the infinite tapestry, a spark of the divine, cloaked in skin and story. And when you live like that, even silently, you wake others up without even trying. You become the permission they didn't know they needed, so ask yourself, what would change if you truly accepted your gift? What would you stop waiting for? Who would you become? And are you willing to be that version of you now? The world doesn't need another performer. It needs the real you, awake, present, unapologetic. And now that you've remembered, you can't unknow it. So tell me, what truth inside you is ready to rise? Drop it in the comments. Because your voice isn't just heard, it's needed.